it does take me a while to prepare these things. I just don't go to the dial 1-800, give me a sermon. Somebody was telling me, well, I won't say who, but it was a dear friend of ours from years and years ago. They finally wised up, like 20 years after we wised up and left. And the guy was downloading them off of online, just downloading them. And they found it and doing their own clicking, and there it was, verbatim, These are not downloaded, folks. In Proverbs 18, are we there? And I sincerely want to be a blessing in that it would help you. I want to help you. And I know it was Doc said in, I think it was Dr. Strachan, said the life of a preacher. He said eventually what's going to happen, he didn't quite put it this way, is that you're going to end up being a loner. You will end up being an outcast. No friends, etc. And people are going to treat you different from now till you die. And that's what he kind of said. And not you, but he's referring to the preacher. He said, even if you quit, it's over. He said that's the way it is. Now, does that hold true or not? I don't know. It is July. Usually in July is not, it's not July yet, but it's a little close. July is not a good month for Mr. T. And it wasn't a good month 2 years ago. It wasn't a good month last year. It was a very bad month. And I don't want it to be a bad month this year. So anybody that's involved with it, please don't make it a bad month for me. I want it to be a good month. So we're going to preach on a word here, and it is found in verse 18. It's found in verse 19, and that is the word contentions. And who here likes contentions? Do you like that? Some people just love to fight. I mean, it's just like, they love it. They love it, they can't get off in it, and they won't get off in it. But I'm here to help you so that you will get off of it. Now this morning, what was our sermon? Just a passing thought. The heart, well, quote the verse, somebody help me quote.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Folks, that is, you can say what you want, that's a scientific fact.
Amen.
And any lost psychologist would probably come along and say, after he's examined enough people, including his own head, would say the same thing. That's a scientific fact. And you got to realize that that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And if the ruts in your heart are leading the wrong way, through the power of Jesus, you bust up that road and you pave a new road. And the new ruts that are made, it's okay to have my whole life is just one big rut. Well, it needs to be that way for Jesus, amen? Until the day you and I die, and we need to stay in those ruts, right? And if you're in the wrong rut, the power of Christ will get you from the wrong rut into the right rut. Amen? Now, this contentions business, don't you, you would love to have it, even Leave It to Beaver. Were there contentions with Leave It to Beaver? Yeah, there were contentions. The story was built around that. There has to be some kind of, what do you call it, conflict? Right. There has to be some conflict, some challenge, something to overcome, some lesson to learn. Father Knows Best, all those programs have that. Anything that's being taught, what's the other one? Mayberry, Andy Griffith Show, all of those programs have that. So there's contentions that, but you want them to be at a minimum. Now, the better we understand it, the better that, and the more we understand what causes these contentions, the better we are going to be able to solve. Don't you want to solve them? Solve the contentions. We have 10 points tonight. They all start with the letter S. All right? And it's kind of like that phone. Well, it's on Facebook. Well, I don't know what's on Facebook. I don't care what's on Facebook. The end of the world could be on Facebook. I don't care. I don't care. So I'm not even going to get involved in it. And don't bother me with it. If you want to get involved in it, just don't tell me about it. I don't want these contentions or anything else going on with it. So if we understand what causes these things, then maybe we can better get out of what these contentions are so that we can overcome them. So with these 10 points, I want you to take them to heart. And I'm preaching so that you can put these things to practice. Put these things to practice so that you can actually do these things. You want to do these things, right? Right? The smaller the child, I'm looking at Rosie here, the smaller the child, the less contentions she has. But do little children have contentions? Sure they do. Little children have contentions all day. Look, we're seeing a smile back there. Probably Shane has got some contentions back there. But contentions, and in their eyes it seems like it's something really big. When in our eyes it's something small. And the older we get, they seem to grow and become bigger. So let us begin here. We've already prayed. We're going to begin at verse 17. Verse 17, and we are going to go through verse 21. It begins here, he that is first in his own cause seemeth just. So we're going to interpret these things about these contentions and what is the cause of them and how can we overcome them. And if you're going to be online tonight while I'm preaching, God help you. So don't be online tonight. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just. So it begins with a person that, hi Dana, how's your mother? Good. Yeah, we prayed over you and Mom this morning, and I said to Doreen or to the congregation, I need to come over and see you. Is that okay or not? Whenever. All right. Now, hopefully I'll have a chance. I'll give you a call. All right. Or we'll go to lunch or something. All right. Well, you got out of the house. You're out of the house.
Well, I just left.
And you're in God's house. All right. But anyway, our topic is Contentions, Proverbs 18. If Grayson will share a Bible with you or whatever, and we can go from there. It begins with, he that is first in his own cause seemeth right. In other words, somebody comes with, I have a cause, I am justified. I have my side of the story. So it begins with a person that is, you can say they're selfish. I'm not saying that we're not saying that the person is wrong. The person can be very right. He may be 100% right. He may be 100% wrong. He may be 50% right, but it's all dealing around self. And when this person has this contention or makes this plea or has this problem, they're presenting this problem, they feel in their own heart that they are completely right. They are not wrong. All right? So it begins with self. It's when there's only one side to the story. And as a preacher, as a mother, as a father, you hear arguments from children, and you hear at work you hear their side of the story, right? But what do we always say? You hear what side of the story? There's always what? There's always two sides to every story. That's what the verse is talking about. So it begins with that there's only one side to the story. So it begins with self. And that person has already made up their mind that they are right. And there's no reason to go beyond that. Is they're right, you're wrong, and that's it. All right, one side of the story. He that speaks first seems to be the just one. We're only going to turn to 3 or 4 other verses. If you go to Proverbs 12:15, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, whatever that way may be. Proverbs 30, verse 12. Verses that kind of justify this one-sided affair. There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes. So when they present this thing, they seem to be pure in their own eyes. I was coming down. I was with the wife. It could have been yesterday. I don't know when it was. We were coming down the park. I think it was this morning. We were coming down the park road, and I'm thinking, and there were bikers. And the sun rises in the east, so the sun was coming up here. And my windshield, Amy, I'm thinking about your cousin. My windshield was kind of blurry. And not foggy, but there was a shine. You know how it kind of, not blinding, but there was this reflection. It was hard to see through. And all these bikers were coming up. And I told the wife, well, what if I adjusted my belt one notch, or I decided to drive with my elbows, or I let go of the wheel? And I went across. I said, I could have taken all those bikers right out, just like that. And I would have been justified. What was my excuse for doing that? I went over the double yellow. I didn't. Well, let's say I did. How did I justify myself? Well, I couldn't see. The sun was shining in my eyes. Now, I was still in the wrong. It didn't happen. But I actually thought about is it your cousin? First cousin, second cousin, some cousin by the dozen. It's a cousin, though. And but you see what the verse says. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just. So they come with whatever the issue is. It's like a trial. There's the prosecution, and then there's the what? The defense. There's the prosecution, and who does their presentation first? Even though there's cross-examination, you get past all the cross. Who does the present? We'll pronounce it like the intellect. The presentation. The prosecutor. The prosecutor does his presentation first, and when they're done. They cut those witnesses. They put the plaintiff in the best light they can. And anybody out in the audience that's watching says, "Oh man, they got a good case. They have a good case. I mean, this is airtight. Airtight. All right. Until look at verse 17. But his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. Until you hear the other side of the story. Until you hear the other side of the story. Till the neighbor comes and searcheth him. It's hearing the other side of the story. Now the stories I have here tonight as some examples are military stories. Now I saw Mary's father last night. And I may have seen this before. On his license plate, it says veteran. And he's our age. It says veteran, and it says Bronze Star. Bronze Star. I said, did you win a Bronze Star? His wife, Denise, she said, you don't win those, you earn those. And I'm thinking, yeah, like winning a contest, you know. And you earn those. But I really prodded him. And then I laid off. And he says, now here's what he's told me. He says he's never told anybody. Anybody. So nobody knows how or why he got it. So he went online, click, and defined Bronze Star. There's Bronze Star, Bronze, there was like 4 different ones. The Bronze Star is not a bronze award, there's 4 others. It was, the Bronze Star stood alone. And it still didn't really define it like how do you win it? How do you earn it? It still didn't quite define all of it. So then I brought this up because it's in my sermon. I said, well, I'm going to preach on that tomorrow night. And this is something that occurred when we were kids. When I say we were kids, we were 18, 19, 20 years old. And remember Lieutenant Kelly? All right, he went into that village and he shoots 20, 30 of them. Now, I asked Sam about that. He logged on. He said, well, there was a commanding officer who was acquitted, who was found not guilty. A commanding officer who was, I said he was there. I didn't know the whole story. I mean, I did follow it on Walter Cronkite. And he said 70% of the people in America found him to be the scapegoat. And I said, well, I felt he was the scapegoat too. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. We're saying it did happen. So if you're the prosecutor, the government, it wasn't the government that went after him. You know, the military went after him. I mean, it was a military trial. Lieutenant Kelly's case looks airtight. And this is only an example. It looks airtight. This guy is guilty until you walk in his shoes and go through those villages and have every child and old grandmother shooting at you. See? To have every child and grandmother shooting at you that are not in uniform. These people aren't in uniform. And they're shooting at you. See, that's the other side of the story. There was the self, and then the other side of the story is the scrutiny, hearing the other side. We had friends that had survived all this. One fellow said that there was an ox coming onto the base with the old woman leading. I've given this illustration before. The ox, it's an old woman, leading the ox. And I forget the fellow's name. It was a friend of ours. He said, halt or I'll shoot. I think he gave her 3 warnings. Halt or I'll shoot. Now, I don't know how you say it in Vietnamese. Halt or I'll shoot. He shot the ox. He decided, instead of shooting the old woman, we're going to give her a warning. We're going to shoot the ox. He shoots the ox. They never found the woman, and they never found the ox. They never found either, because they were blown to smithereens. Because the ox was probably loaded with something. Or the ox digested it. It was in its belly. However it came in, he said it blew it to smithereens, the kingdom come. All right? It's like a case against the Nazi atrocities that take place, right? Like Nuremberg. Until you hear the atrocities that took place in Siberia, right? That are much worse. See, it looks good until you compare it to another side. I had a customer came in. He was in Berlin. You had it zoned off. You had the English were here, the Russians are here, the Americans are here. And he said what was taking place on the Russians, they were right on the border. And at night, what the Russians were doing to those people from Berlin, he said, he wouldn't describe it. He said, I can't tell you. It is so awful. And they couldn't do anything about it. Anything about it. Of what takes place. So why was Nikita Khrushchev given Berlin? Anybody know why Nikita Khrushchev was given Berlin? It was on those specials to get revenge for what the Germans did at Stalingrad. Yeah. They say the Germans got the worst of it. I mean, they killed millions of them. So they gave Nikita Khrushchev that to get revenge. So you have one side of the story, and it sounds pretty good until you hear the other side of the story. But bringing this down to home, beyond Bronze Stars and war, bringing it down to your everyday life. When you walk in, you have your issue, whatever that issue is. And you are self-righteous and you believe that you are fully right. Without hearing, you need to hear the other side of the story. That's what the verse says. There's two sides to every story. And to end or to stop a lot of contention is you need to hear both sides of the story. A lot of times you hear the prosecution side, you hear the defense side, and after you hear both sides of the story, when you're on the jury, I mean, you've got to make a decision. Sometimes it's probably very hard to make the decision. I've never sat through that, but I would say that, man, they sound right, but they sound right. And it's very hard to make a decision here. But we always remember this, when there is a contention, there are two sides to every story. Two sides to every story. That is what the verse means. All right, let's go on. Now a solution. We want to have a solution. There are ways to solve this. It says, the lot causeth contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. The lot. Those who believe God's control of providence. Proverbs 16:33. Go there. Now, we don't believe in the lot. We don't do the lot today. The last time the lot was cast is in Acts chapter 1, in the choosing of the apostles. The lot, verse 33, the lot is cast in the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. Hey, listen, those Old Testament Jews believed in that. And according to the book, it works. Now, how is the lot? Is it short straws, long straws? Is it dice? Is it, what else do they cast? Is it the drawing of cards? Give me some others. I did say the drawing of straws. Oh, with Spanky and our gang, they go see Yum, eat 'em up. That guy, it was whoever drew the black ball, but remember what was in the box? Only black balls. It wasn't Stymie or one of those guys had to draw it, you know. There is a solution. One way to do it, I remember we used to have, with the company, we would have meetings. We had gone to MCC that day. We came home that night, and there was a meeting for Tucker Landscaping, and I bought this thing that you spin for a joke. And it said, it gave solutions. It was like a magic 8-ball. You'd spin it, and it gave, this is the answer. I said, well, all right, everybody gave their 2.5 cents worth. And I said, well, let's see what the answer is. So just for a joke, I spun the thing. We would spin it, and it would give an answer, like spin again, or mom's right, or something. It would have had all these answers. I thought it was kind of funny. But you can choose I don't say you should choose a solution like that, but you could. A solution. Do you see that verse 17, there's two sides to every story? And that's what that verse means. And they did resolve conflicts or contentions by the casting of the lots. All right? Now, whatever the solution is, whatever that solution is, there must be, in verse 18, and parteth between the mighty. It parts them, resolves this conflict. So whatever the solution is, there must be submission to that. That's our fourth one. There must be submission. That is, you need to abide by the agreement, keeping one's word. No matter what. I mean, when I keep my word, I will be there at, I don't do military time, but you know what I mean. I will be there at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock, by hook or by crook. If that's the agreement, and somebody calls and says they want me to break the agreement, you've got to do this, I'm keeping my word, no matter what. I keep my word. I don't break my word. There must be submission to that, willing submission to that, to avoid contentions. Look at verse 19. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. A brother offended. All right, a person, the Bible says this, the righteous shall what? Never what? Be offended. So I remember Pastor Thompson, he was hot about something. And then all of a sudden he corrected himself. It was in class, he was talking about something, and then all of a sudden I realized the brothers shall never be offended. And he said, I said to the person, I'm not offended. And he said that the righteous shall never be offended. It's that there are people who are sensitive and they're offended. I'm going to ask you, Luke, have you ever fought with Zach? Have you ever fought with him?
Yes.
You have. Grayson, did you ever fight with Zach? Yeah? Zach, are you sleeping, Zach? He might be out. Yeah, he's asleep. Luke, have you ever fought with Starla? You can say yes. Yeah, you have. Oh, Starla disagrees with that. Starla, have you ever fought with Rose? Or Rose, have you ever fought with Starla? Fun fighting? Fun fighting. Listen, brothers and sisters fight. And in the Lord, we're brothers and sisters, and sometimes they fight. They fight. A brother offended, that they are, our fifth S word is sensitive. They do get offended. It is, I believe, it is a sign of the last days. The elder brother, remember in the restoration of the prodigal son, the elder brother was offended. Matthew 24, if you would turn there. Matthew 24, verse 10. It's a sign of the last day, being sensitive. In Matthew 24, I believe the rapture's already happened. We're out of there. It says, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, shall hate one another. I mean, these things ought not to be for God's children. Should not be. It is a sign of the last days. Jesus Christ in 1 Peter 2:8 is called a rock of what? Anybody want to finish the verse? If we were, the word we're on. Yes, sir. You got it. A rock of offense. What does that mean? Jesus offended people on a regular basis. He probably said, it's time to offend people. And he did it. I don't want to be past time. We want to be right on time. And he would offend people. All right? Now, if your toes are getting stepped on tonight, well, then it's time. It is time. All right? Sensitive. And if you're sensitive, well, then, just wear some steel-toed boots. It's tough, man. But Christ offended others on a regular basis, and he was called a rock of offense. Right? People are sensitive. And it's just, all it is Jesus just spoke the truth. Spoke the truth. And sometimes the truth has to be stated. Sometimes it just has to be stated. And if people are sensitive to that, well then too bad. And then all right, we've said it, we've had it out, and then now you sleep on it. Tonight, tomorrow night, the next night, until you digest this, and get over it. Sensitive. Verse, same verse. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. And their contentions, our sixth word is strife. Who here likes strife? I mean, come on, you don't like strife. People don't like that. Now, when we were in the classes, we personally do not experience this with Starla. But when we were in the classes, because Starla was only 20 months, she was pretty little. When we were in the class, they said, beware that sometimes these kids, they lived this life. This is the life they live. When they come into your house, if it's the proper house, sometimes children go to a worse situation. They go to a worse situation. And we know that for a fact. But if they come to your house and everything is, Father knows best, everything's quiet and peaceful, and everything gets along, how do those children feel that came out of a very strifeful situation? Do they feel good or do they feel uncomfortable? What is your guess? Yeah, now, you see, I would say the opposite, but the truth is of what you said, is they feel uncomfortable. They're not used to that. They feel on edge and like there's something wrong here. So what they have to do is they must create strife to feel in their comfort zone. So we've got to break a glass. We've got to break a window. We've got to go punch your sister. You've got to do something to create chaos. And that's how they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable that way. But these contentions are very stressful and they cause a lot of strife. And those things need to end. Need to end. I mean, we're adults. This needs to end. Through the power of Jesus, we outgrow these things. We are to outgrow these things. This strife. Now, lately I've been saying my mother I wouldn't call her an angel, but she's been really good. And the more she sleeps while I'm over there, now while she's sleeping, she cannot be causing any strife. And then when I'm sleeping too, in the same room with her, Brother Wiltsey was over, and I passed out. He said, "Oh, yeah, you were sleeping." And he said, "Well, I just let you go. I don't bother you, because if you're sleeping, there's no reason to wake you because you are tired. And it only lasts for 20 minutes. And can there be any strife when you're sleeping? No, there can't be. So my mother's sleeping, I am sleeping, and there's no strife." And my mother's been very kind, really very kind. Now she said, "I want to die tonight." I said, "Well, the Lord will take you when he's ready. And maybe this is the night, Mom, but it wasn't the night. At least I haven't heard lately." But these contentions, this strife is real. It is real. And it is not fun to go through that. All right? Now, it says it is... Now, why did I bring this up? Because I thought I'd stay... Now, maybe we won't do this anymore, but I thought I'd stay with the Sunday night on these metaphors or similitude, that it is like. Contentions are like... What does the rest of the verse say? The bars of a castle. They're like the bars of a castle. Are like the bars of a castle. So that prompted me to write this. So when I think about the bars of a castle, I could only think of 3 things. Maybe you could think of 10 things. I could only think of 3 things, the bars of a castle. I know there is a twilight zone where this kind old gentleman is locked up in prison. Anybody ever see that one? This kind old gentleman, he's locked up in a prison. And this young man comes to the prison. I forget why he comes to the prison, and he says, "Well, why you're locked up?" And he says, "Well, let me out, let me out." And he says, "Well, why don't you just get out?" And what's I don't know what you call those hooks. There's 2 hooks. There's not chains in a lock there. The 2 hooks that keep him so he can't open it up. It's just a staff in there. Well, who holds the staff? Who holds the crook? Huh? Jesus. So it's the shepherd's staff is there. He says, "Well, why don't you just lift that up and get out?" Anybody ever see that? Nobody remember? "Why don't you just lift it up?" I can't, I'm too weak. And he said, "Just lift it up and get out of there." Through much persuasion, he persuades the young fella to lift it up. All right? Well, who do you think the old man is? He's the devil. So the young guy lifts it up. He lifts it up and opens the door. The devil comes out. And then he starts walking. And every pillar he crosses, he goes beyond these pillars. So every pillar he crosses, he changes more into Satan until he fully turns into Satan. You hear the young guy didn't realize he was letting Satan out. If all these bars, our first point, our 7th one on these bars, are the spacing of the bars. If there was just a bar here and a bar here, in a bar here, would that hold you up? It's kind of like war. You come to a city, well, let's say you can't, in the Battle of Balls, in the movie, they come to this city and the commander says, just go around it! You know, and wall them in, wall the GIs in, and go around, and he says, no, I'm going to make a point of these people, and make an example of them. And he's commanded to go around the city and you could go around the place. But it's because there's so many of these contentions, they're so close together, you can't get out. It's like the bars of a castle. Because of the spacing of them, there's many of them. Where there's one contention, there's two, there's three, and then we can invent some more. So that just your very breathing, your very existence, it becomes contention. It's kind of like the wife comes to bed. What is it you don't like? Go ahead, tell me. Oh, I take the whole. Oh, see, there's an extra bar. She said I hog the whole thing. Well, I go to bed early, and I hog the whole bed. Or it's summertime, so now I've warmed up. That's another bar. I've warmed up her side of the bed. No, what's the other one? What's the other one? Snoring. All right, so that's the third one. All right, snoring. Well, the minute I fall asleep and I'm snoring, well, the minute she comes and 5 minutes later she falls asleep, then what's she doing? Well, what's she doing after 5 minutes after she falls asleep? You know, she's snoring just like I'm snoring. You know, come on. Hey, there's two sides to every story. See, we can make. One day she said, "You're snoring." Well, I knew I was sort of half awake, and I'd go. I said, "That's just me breathing." I said, "You don't even like it when I breathe. I'm breathing heavy. I wasn't snoring. I was just breathing heavy." You see how you can get contention just with someone's very. It can get to the point where you get contentious about their very existence. Just because you are, I'm mad. You can get to that point. The wife and I aren't at that point. But I'm saying you can get to that point where just their very existence irks you. So the spacing of them, there are many of them. And then the next thing about these bars, they're like the bars of a castle, is that bars separate. That's our eighth point. Now listen, we only have 10 points. It separates the one from the other. It separates the chiefest of friends. It separates people. Amen? Contentions separate people. It keeps one from another. All right? I mean, do you like that? It's like the bars. There's like the bars. There's many of them, and like the bars, it keeps people out from your world. You know, I don't know who sings it. It's a country western song. Welcome, remember that song? Welcome to my world. Was that Eddie Arnold? Yeah, that is Eddie Arnold. Welcome to my world, built with you in mind. Da 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 da. La da 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 da. It's really a good tune. La da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Welcome to my world. The way it ends on a minor key too. Da 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 da. La da 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 da. That's a minor. I'm pretty sure it ends on a minor key. I like the song. But that is Eddie Arnold. Yeah. Yeah, you know what made Eddie Arnold? You know, he said, I was sick and tired of looking at the wrong end of a mule. And so he ended up buying 15 acres of downtown Nashville. Right? So he went to make it by crooning and playing his guitar. Right? He was sick and tired of looking at the wrong end of a Missouri mule. Right? But bars separate people. And like the bars of a castle, our ninth one is the strength of them to remove these bars. You know, they send in, they slip in a hacksaw blade. I mean, how would you like to sit there forever with a hacksaw blade? If those bars are tempered or heat treated or what, you could saw that till doomsday. The bars is saw on the saw. You know, now maybe the saw is 62 Rockwell, but if you're sawing on a bar that's 70 Rockwell, you could saw till hell freezes over. It ain't happening. The temper of those bars and the hardness of those bars, I'm not saying that they are. I mean, to do that, it costs a fortune. But the strength of these bars, you know, the way they put it in the movies, you finally cut through one, and you get, hey, Brutal, come over here. And then he grabs the bar, you know, this is the movies, and he bends the bar up, and then everybody sneaks out. Oh, yes, sir, what happened?
My brother was in prison, and the bars had a steel rod down the middle. So when you hit the bar with it, roller with that steel rod, it just rolled with the saw. And you can't saw it any farther.
How clever. Anybody remember Brother, he was the policeman for the drugstore. Luann, John Glinski. So he was the police. Hey, man, when you're in the police force like that, you got to figure out ways to outsmart the crooks. They wanted to, you know how they back into the drugstore and steal they made it so that you break the top off, but the van goes up over the top and then lodges on. They designed it so that they can't go through it. It catches the van, so they can't back in to get the ATM machine. They have all kinds of ways of tricking people. That is, if there's a roller in the middle, once you hit that thing just keeps rolling back and forth, and you can't stop it. That's quite an idea. Somebody thought of that. Strength of these bars. The only way sometimes these bars are coming down then is through the strength of Jesus, amen, to remove that. And I pray for you, and I pray for others too, on a regular basis about it. Whenever I think about it, whenever it comes to mind, we need to pray about these things. And last of all, we have 2 minutes left. Verses 20 and 21. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. Right? With the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Death and life. So our last word is the things that we say. Give me a good S word, speaking. What we say, what we speak. In other words, things need to be talked out. Begins with what? 2 sides to every story? Pardon? At least. So at the minimum, there are 2 sides. You've got to realize there's 2 sides to every story. And those things need to be talked out. Then a decision is made, a solution is made, and submitted to that. So what is the solution to the contention? And that is speaking. The tongue can resolve contentions, and it must be fruitful. It could be, it says in the verse, it could be life or death. In other words, it could be like this. I'm not giving in, you flat-foot, big mouth, and that's the end of it. Right? And what does that spell? Life or death? I ain't giving in. Not giving an inch. Well, that spells death. Or you can say, you know, why don't we meet and talk about this? Let's talk about this, and talk it. Well, that brings and breeds life. That breeds life, right? It can bring life or death. For Ananias and Sapphira, they sealed their doom with their mouth, didn't they? Blind Bartimaeus brought about his healing with his tongue. Lord, have mercy on me. See? Esther's tongue saved her people. And Christ's tongue and his words, as he says in John 6:63, they are spirit and they are life. Amen? Now, I hope tonight that headway is made. Headway is made. And that I didn't realize it was in April. D-Day is June. June the 8th, is it June the 8th?
6.
June the 6th, I'm sorry, yeah, June the 6th, and it's April the what? Less than a year later, when they said, all hostilities have ceased. What did it take, 8, 9 months? For them to say, all hostilities have ceased. Probably halfway through that, after D-Day, a lot of Germans said, what are we doing? Before the war started, there's probably a lot of grandmothers and mothers said they're going to march my sons off into doomsday. Right? And half of Russia with them. Right? But in April, all hostilities stopped. See, with contentions, all hostilities can stop if you want them. Much can be learned from these few verses. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him out. Yeah, see, we read the verse, but we say, I got my Bible reading done, but it never sunk in. What does it say? There's two sides to every story. You want resolution? You could cast the lot. You could. Right? It's like the fires of a castle. You want to resolve this, the speaking of your lips, one with another, and coming to mature resolution can solve a whole lot of problems. Shake hands before leaving.